Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, finally, I'm going to introduce the last data type, which is a symbol. Symbol is a primitive data type, and we know in JavaScript there are total is 8 data types. Okay, and I've already covered 7 of them, which are primitive types are 7, and one is a reference type, which is object. The other primitive types are number, string, boolean, none, undefined, big int, and symbol. 7 primitive types. The last one, which is reference type, which is object. So now let's take a look at what is a symbol. According to the specification, when we define the key for an object property, it can be either string or symbol type. So far, when I write a code, okay, I always using a string. I have never used a symbol before. And what is symbol? A symbol represents a unique identifier, and this is a language level guaranteed unique. So you don't need to worry; it's gonna be the same, okay, language level guarantee, which means JavaScript language guarantee it's gonna be unique. How to use a simple symbol? On the left side, we have some examples, which is this one. Let ID equal symbol, and if you have, you can also for the symbol, you can also give kind of a string, which is identifier here, and from ID1, ID2. And the symbol on the right side of the statements, they are exactly same. But when we're using ID1 equal ID2, you are getting false because this string, okay, here it's just a it's kind of like a for human readable, okay, which is this is for ID. Even you add it or not add it, the JavaScript will guarantee the ID1 and the ID2 they are exactly identical. They are unique. Okay. Now let me show you this part in our code. My mind is not a very clear. It's not a very what should I say? Clear now. I'm a little bit tired. Simple demo. I will comment most of them, and we start from the first one. Okay, so the first one I will comment uncomment this one and uncomment the other two. Okay, even if you don't need to add them, it will still become false. Okay, we can use 3 equals. Okay, let's take a look at this part. Open in a default browser, and I will take it here, and you will see false. Or even suppose I using 2 means only compare the values, right? You will also see false because this one means create one symbol, and this one means create another symbol. And when we ask JavaScript to create a symbol, it will guarantee it's gonna be unique, the language level. And here, if I add ID and also add ID, doesn't matter. Okay, we will still see false because this ID is just say, okay, this is symbol for the ID, this symbol for name, this is symbol for other things. But when we create a symbol using this syntax, it will always become a unique. Okay, that is symbol. Second one, symbols do not auto convert to a string. Like when we're using alert will try to convert everything you put inside the method as argument into a string type. And later on we will talk about more about object convert to string. Okay, but here when we put alert ID here, you will have say cannot convert symbol to be a string. Now let me show you this one. I just add an alert here. Console.log doesn't do. Okay, we actually can console log this one. Let's console.log the symbol first. ID. Okay, see, take a look at what's the value here. You will see just a symbol. Okay, you actually didn't see it because it's language level. And now if I try to alert, okay, alert this ID. Console log ID doesn't have any problem, right? But when you do alert, we're trying to convert all the values you pass into alert into a string. And when we do, you will have an error, like cannot convert a symbol value to a string. That's another thing which is special. If you really want to do, you can using the toString method. You have to manually to call. You will call it and you will get a symbol. Okay. So that is the first slides I'm trying to cover about the symbol. Okay, what it is. Now, when and where should we use the symbols? Why do we have the symbols being created? Symbols are also called hidden properties. The reason is the reason why we have symbols, where in which kind of situation we want to use. I'll give you a scenario which is displayed in the first this piece of code. Suppose you have an object. Your application is very large, okay? Your application is very large. And this piece of code is I pick from different places. Suppose, or you can think as, suppose this user, okay? This piece of code belongs to a library. Or another piece of code belongs to a library. And in your script, which is the script you use, okay, you extended on the user. You did something like this way. User.id equals our ID value. After this line, what's gonna happen? The user will have equals 2. Is still an object, right? But it's gonna have two property. One is a name. Is what? John. Okay. And the other one is ID, is our ID value. Okay, like this. I should give a specific ID. So this is your script is doing. And later on, suppose you include another library, which is JavaScript library. And this JavaScript library depends on user, the library again. And also they did something which is user.id equals their values. So eventually in your code, what's gonna become the user object? We know if by this order, eventually our the ID property won't become the value of our ID value, right? Because it overridden by another script. So eventually you will get their ID value inside this user object. And and if your application is very large, you will feel very strange because it's all overridden by another library included inside your project. And sometimes it's really hard to find out these kind of problems. And the reason we can override is because this ID, which is a property name, is a string. A string, and when the string are the two equal, and JavaScript will override the values. It won't add another ID here. It won't add another ID, and with the value is called their ID values because the two property key is exactly same. And that is where we can use a symbol to solve this kind of problems, because with symbol, it's gonna become unique. Okay, now let me show you. Here actually has one, like suppose you can do like using after you create a symbol, and you're using this syntax square bracket, right? Because this is on what? This is a variable, okay? We have to actually using the symbol. We cannot using dot notation, okay? If you don't understand why you this way, take a look at my previous videos. And we're using user ID equals 1, and we know symbol will guarantee this key being used inside the user object is gonna be unique. So, and how to access, you can use it the same way. And if other object is still using another user ID, it won't find out, okay? It won't have any problem because symbol is guaranteed to be unique. Now let me show you inside the code, okay? I just do like this way. So the first one is like this way, which is all the way like we do is, suppose I using console.log user. As we know, it's gonna become their value, okay? Oh, see here, have name and ID is their value, okay, which is not good. And the better way is we don't do like this. What I'm doing is let ID equals what thing? Symbol. Then I will use ID, okay? The value being held. Did I using ID somewhere? Oh yes, I used the ID again, okay? So I will comment those so it won't have any problem, okay? And the user ID equals, okay, we can say our ID value. Suppose other script, if they do like this way, definitely no problem, right? Because this ID hold the value is definitely gonna become not the same as the string ID. So in this case, we will see 3 property. You will see here, name John and ID is their value, and the symbol is our ID value. Okay, 3. And for suppose other user, other script, they also defined an ID 2 equals a symbol again, and here they use ID 2. Okay, you still won't have any problem here because the symbol is guaranteed to be unique. So for the user, you still will have 3. They say one symbol and another symbol. And to access your value about the ID, what you do is just use console.log user ID. Then you can get the value of our ID value. You will get our ID value, okay? And the other script, they were using ID 2, okay? So in this case, you don't have any conflict. That's where we use symbol, okay? Because it's guaranteed to be unique. Next slides I'm trying to cover is the symbols in an object literal. The value from the variable ID as a key and not the string ID, because here we're using this one. This example is to show you because if I doing like this way, what's gonna happen? The user will have 2 property. The property name is name and the ID. ID is string, but I want to use symbol, right? So you have to use it like this way. Yeah, like this. This one means I will use the value which is held by the variable ID. Okay. This one I have a demo for you guys. Let me comment to the others. Like here. And we can using user 2. Okay, probably I defined the user somewhere. I couldn't remember. I defined the user here. That's why. Let me use user 2. Okay, user 2. Now, if I have a console.log user 2, what's gonna become the value? You will see name is John, and what's the value here? You will see symbol 1, 2, 3, right? Not ID 1, 2, 3. Now let me show you. You will see name is John, symbol is 1, 2, 3. Here is ID because I had the string ID inside the symbol, okay? And if I do like this way, what's gonna happen? The user 2 gonna have a name and ID is 1, 2, 3. That's the difference, okay? Use bracket, which means refer to the variable value as the key, not to the variable string itself. So I'd like to stop here and we have a few more, which is why they are hidden properties. Okay, we will talk about it in next video, because otherwise the video gonna be very long. So thank you for watching this video. See you next time. Bye bye.